Okay, so I think it's worth talking a bit about Rome, because Rome sort of forms the backdrop of the cultural milieu in the Mediterranean basin after the period of Alexander's empire. So Rome sort of started as a city-state that was fairly contemporaneous with the Greek city-states. You've got Lycurgus of Sparta, born in 820, and Solon of Athens, born in 638, and these are both the respective lawgivers and in effect the founders of their cities. Now Romulus was alleged to have founded the city of Rome in 753 BC, and the founding myth of Rome reveals three key things about the way the Romans viewed themselves. So Romulus was raised with his brother Remus by a wolf. It shows the Romans viewed themselves as fairly hardy. Romulus killed Remus to have the city named after him, which shows they were fairly ruthless at times. And also Romulus was meant to have been descended from the Trojan prince Aeneas, i.e. he wasn't a Greek. So the Romans didn't view themselves as Greeks in the same way that both the Spartans and the Athenians would have. Romulus might have been the first king of Rome, but the kings of Rome didn't last forever. In 535, Tarquinius Superbus was overthrown, allegedly after his son raped a noblewoman, although there might have been other issues such as high taxes and not great success in wars. Nevertheless, what followed was the Roman Republic, which was much more successful than the kings of Rome, and under the Republic many of Rome's greatest territorial gains will be made. Now, the Republic was founded in around 507 BC, but by the time of 493 and shortly after that, it had conquered most of the states in Latium, or modern-day Lazio, which is the province that surrounds Rome. Shortly after that, the Romans came into contact with the Greeks in central Italy, and a series of struggles took place, which the Romans won. Now, the reason for the Romans winning was partly due to the manoeuvrability of their legionaries. You remember the Macedonians and the Greek armies had used these massive big poles called sarissas. Well, the sarissas were successful when Alexander used them because he had his cavalry to smash in when the opposing army was held up by the sarissas. But the sarissas made the armies terribly unmanoeuvrable, and what seems to have happened was that the Macedonian and Greek armies were using these relatively manoeuvrable pikemen without much cavalry support due to a shortage of horses due to the size of the Greek Empire at the time. And so the Greeks were driven out of central Italy. By around 218 BC, the Roman Republic had conquered all of Italy, and shortly after that, the overthrow of Carthage and its complete destruction in 150 BC, as well as the overthrow of Macedon and the destruction of Corinth at a similar time, saw Rome consolidate its hold as the dominant power in the Mediterranean basin. Now it's worth from here just taking a step back and considering the Roman relation to culture. So the Romans had relative supremacy in law and also in the practical sciences of engineering, so they built great roads for their armies to walk on and aqueducts. But in terms of art and literature, they tended to adopt a lot from the Greeks. So many of the Roman statues were copies of Greek statues, and in terms of literature, Roman literature was very much inspired by Greek literature. The relationship of the Romans to the Greeks, however, was not always approving. The Romans viewed Odysseus, the lead character in the Odyssey, as a cruel individual who was amoral and very tricky, whereas the Greeks admired this trickiness and cunning. Similarly, this lack of distrust of Greekness and its degenerate immorality extended to Greek philosophy. Now, Parmenides the skeptic came to Rome, and he had 2 lectures to give. In the first lecture, he talked about the wonderful Roman justice system, and this greatly pleased the aristocracy of Rome. In the second lecture, he proceeded to deconstruct everything that he said in the first lecture. You remember Parmenides was a skeptic, and this incensed the elder Cato so much that he drove Charmanides from Rome, saying that he was not to corrupt the youth of Rome, but he could go and corrupt the youth of Athens in peace. Anyway, so this is Roman culture. The Republic didn't last forever. A sort of power struggle emerged between powerful generals of the empire, between Marius and Sulla, and this later gave way to a further struggle between generals Pompey and Caesar. When Pompey threatened to take legal action against Caesar, Caesar gathered his legions and marched upon the city of Rome, crossing the Rubicon, which he was forbidden to do, allegedly in defence of his friend. Now, Caesar then became effective ruler of Rome after he deposed Pompey, but was assassinated a few years later. However, Caesar's son, Octavian, together with Caesar's friend Mark Antony, were able to regain control of the city, and after a falling out between the two, Octavian emerged as the sole ruler and emperor of the Roman world.